Welcome to the John Passadino Show,
an observational podcast that turns everyday moments into meaningful reflections.
And now here is your host,
John Passadino.
Hello, and welcome to the John Passadino Show with your host, John Passadino. Please hold your applause. Thank you. Thank you. We, meaning me, I have a special guest, of course. And her name is Nicole. And she is the author of Hello Sunshine, A Caregiver's Unexpected Journey of Love and Loss. She's also a children's book author of 2 books. Let's see if I can get them right. Buster's Backpack Adventure is one of them, and An Apple a Day is another one. And they're both on Amazon. Actually, all 3 books are on Amazon.
Yes.
And Amy Nicole is also the creator of a great website called The Human Interest Story. I am on fire. Look at, I know all this stuff. Isn't that amazing? It's, my staff has been feeding me information and, in my headset. So they're like, John, don't forget to mention this. I'm only kidding. There is no staff. It's just me. Anyway, welcome, Amy.
Thank you very much.
So the big elephant in the room is there's so many things that you're doing. And also, you're a member of the Long Island Authors Group on the board of directors. And I was saying the elephant in the room is because it's your journey as a caregiver. It doesn't overshadow the children's books. The children's books are wonderful, but it's just so powerful. That's what I want to get at. The book, Hello Sunshine, which I read, is so powerful. And I will say that it was the hardest book I ever read and the easiest book I read. Easy because it's so easily laid out. And I have it dog-eared. I have so many highlights in here. But I was able to zip through it, but it was so hard because it brought me through your journey, such mind-numbing, emotional trauma and what your mom went through, because it is about your mom. And I'm going to let you talk in a second about it. But it's you have so much to say about your journey as a caregiver. And we'll talk about that first, and then we'll talk about the children's books. We'll end on on lighter notes. So tell me about how Hello Sunshine came to be.
Well, thank you first for having me, and thank you for your kind words regarding the book. To your sentiment, it's been feedback from many readers that it's been a very hard read, and I worked really hard to find balance with telling the truth, a truthful story, but not making it too hard to read. But when it's the subject matter that it is, it's emotional to begin with. So it just has to be something that, your heart is in the place to read at the time. But it began with my mom's journey, with her cancer journey. It was a rare blood disease called myelofibrosis. She was diagnosed very suddenly, and she was a patient at Memorial Sloan Kettering for less than a year was her battle. During that time, I moved her from Albany down here to Long Island to stay with me so I could care for her and help get her back and forth to treatments. And about halfway through that time, she went into the hospital and she stayed inpatient for the rest of her time until she passed away on April 13th, 2016. And during that time, I was a full-time working mother in a corporate industry with 2 teenage children and balancing going back and forth to Manhattan every day, on top of the emotional journey I was on as a mother, as a daughter, as a caregiver. And I felt like I needed an outlet. I was 37 years old and just could not find anything that I could relate to or anybody. A lot of the books on the market for caregiving are dementia related. So I could not relate to that at the time. While I had a great support system, I turned to my writing and I began journaling. And while my mother was receiving treatment, I had already made the decision to publish this book because I felt like it could help other caregivers like me, no matter what the outcome was.
And you might have said it to me in the past about journaling. I it showed, that is suggested so often as a therapy. In fact, my Apple Watch tells me, journal today. Why don't you journal today? And I stop and start it. But I'm so glad you did it, that you had the strength to do it, because I know every family has a story, similar story, because unfortunately, this insidious disease just doesn't go away. And that's a whole other story why it's not, and why
Mhm.
money isn't spent on it and all that. But I agree so much. You're, you have such courage to have written this, and I know what goes into a book. You had to draft and redraft, and you had an editor um, work on this with you, Margaret Altizer.
Altizer.
So I'm sure
Yeah.
that having that other set of eyes, and I wanted to get to the title real fast because I know from reading the book that that was the song title that your mother sang, "Hello
Yes.
Sunshine." And was that a song she wrote herself?
Yes, it was. She was a songwriter, as a teenager playing guitar, and she wrote Hello Sunshine. I believe not long before I was born or right after I was born in 1978. And she would always sing this song to me, and I just loved it. And I remember looking at the piece of paper where she had written the song, and
Yeah,
I just always loved to read it. And I think that's kind of where my writing passion came also
yeah.
started, the seed planted. Um, but her brushing my hair at night after my bath and singing to me, playing her guitar are some of my fondest memories. And right before she was diagnosed with cancer, um, just to back up a little bit, her mother, my grandmother, had passed away.
Hmm.
I think it was like 2 years before my mom's diagnosis. And they were, you know, a clone of each other. And when my
Hmm.
grandmother passed, my mom was her caregiver through cancer. And
Hmm.
it just really took a toll on my mother. And so I knew that had something to do with, um, you know, her becoming so ill not so long after. And when my grandmother passed away, she put her guitar down, and her grief was so bad that she could not sing or play her guitar anymore.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to push her, beyond what she was comfortable with. But I gently nudged her over a couple of years. Mom, you really need to start playing your guitar again, just for yourself. It's
Hmm.
part of your healing. And she finally did. And she went back to church a couple times because she played guitar in church for
Hmm.
decades. And it was a one weekend I went up to visit, and we went to my uncle's house who lived down the road from her, and my a lot of my immediate family were there, and she picked up her guitar and she played Hello Sunshine, and I got it on video.
Oh.
It was the last time she ever sang that song. So when the
Mm.
book title came, it was pretty easy for me.
It's perfect. And I'm you talking about your mom. I remember one part in the book where you said to the doctor you were frustrated and upset and angry. All the emotions
Mm,
came over you while she was sick, and you said, "You don't know my mother. You don't
mm,
even know who she is." I'm paraphrasing. So I'm
mhm.
glad you're telling us who she was. She was a songwriter. What else? She did she's another very important role in life too, aside from being your mom and a songwriter. What else did she do? I know
Yeah.
what she did, but you tell us.
She was a teacher, she was a principal. So she just dedicated her life to working with children. It was her dream, it was her passion. And she didn't become a teacher until later on, until she was, I think she was about 40 when she became a teacher. After my parents divorced, she went back to college, and because she had me when she was 19 years old. So, she became a mother first, and then when she raised her children, it was all about her. And so I'm so happy that she got to spend those years being a teacher, being a principal, living out her dream.
That's wonderful. And so many people now know who she was. Of course, we hate for it to happen the way it did, but they
Mhm.
know through the book and through you telling your stories like you're telling us now, and getting back to the journey as a caregiver, it it kind of it evolved. It
Hmm.
started because it always starts out like this. I get, with when we take care of each other as family members, it's like you hear about, oh, you're not feeling well. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'll check in on you. And then, oh, and then, but this one, and then, oh, good, you're better. Now, it always, 90% of the time, it's like, oh, you're better now. Great. But in this case, it just snowballed and got worse and worse and worse
Really fast too.
fast. Yeah. And it was what the emotion in the book, the emotions that you went on. Your mom was, of course, suffering along physically
Mm-hmm.
and from the mental challenge of it. Um, but as I read some of these descriptions of um, what you both went through, but you stuck by her, and I'm gonna let's. I want to get back to the role of a caregiver because
Hmm.
it is so hard. That role is so hard, and it's so needed today with an aging population, with the baby boomer generation that I'm part of. People are living longer,
Hmm.
and children are taking care of their parents, and it's heart wrenching to know, like, if your mom didn't have you, what would she have done? It's like, it's horrible to think. But going back to you talking about the caregiver role, you say, my hope from telling my story is to help others who are facing the same life event. And I had plenty of people to lean on, and I had an amazing social work at my side. But the disconnect was they weren't caregivers. You were the
Hmm.
caregiver, and others out there are caregivers today who aren't recognized actually, and they
Yeah.
should. They're all saints. You're all saints for you doing what you did, and for them doing what they did. And um,
I think we all become caregivers at some point in our life.
mhm,
It's just a matter of, um, for me, I saw so many people, to your point,
yeah,
in my literal months at MSK,
hmm,
where I would visit my mom every single day, and she had roommates,
yeah,
and I got to know them. And there were so many patients that did not have any family
yeah,
or a caregiver. For example, one of her roommates, I would go get my mom food and I would bring her food. When my mom would fall asleep, I would sit and share stories with her and listen to her stories. And, that was another part of this book that I
mhm,
wanted to share with others, that becomes a caregiver at some point.
yeah. And uh, to varying degrees.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, sometimes, there's out of state, a lot of, as we know, we're New Yorkers. So
Yeah.
many people move out of New York. And your mother literally lived upstate New York, I know.
Mhm.
And your brother, I'm not sure what area was he.
He's up in the Albany area as well.
So he's upstate also.
Mhm.
So, but today it's even more so than ever. I mean, I grew up on the block in the 1960s. I was young in the 1960s. We had family on the block. My aunt and uncle across the street, and they were cousins, and everybody's close by. Today, it's very spread out, more so than ever, I think. I don't have any statistics to back that up, but just what I see. So getting back to your mom's journey and your journey, another place I highlighted is that you had a horrible nightmare one night. You said, I can't remember. Awoke standing up next to the couch drenched in a cold sweat. You almost like had a premonition, would you say, that of what was to come, would you think?
Absolutely. It
Yeah.
was one of the most, for the lack of a better word, um, frightening moments,
Yeah.
aside from the whole journey, because it was a premonition. I had went up to, um, bring my mom to live with me, and she had said to me, why don't you sleep on the couch tonight? I don't
Mhm.
want to keep you up, because she was already so sick. after just a few months. And she would sweat a lot in her sleep at night, and she'd have to change her shirts and, her pillowcases, and she didn't want to disturb me. And it still didn't feel right to me, but I said, okay, whatever makes her feel more comfortable. And I woke up at some point and I was just standing by the couch in the
Mhm.
complete dark. And I was just staring off into her room. And I said, we're never coming back here. I just knew it. And then I went into with my mother and I said, Mom, I'm sorry. I just, I had a nightmare,
Mhm.
just like a little girl would be going to her mom's room. And she said, lay down. And she said, did you miss, were you worried about your mom? Did you miss your mom or something like that? I can't remember exactly what she said. And she started to, pat my shoulder. And then I
Yeah.
fell asleep. But it was a complete foreshadowing
Mm.
of what was to come.
And as I read the book, I knew some of the story from knowing you in advance, of
Mhm.
course, our pre-production and all that. But as I'm reading it, I'm like rooting for it to. I'm like, because you're so used to like reading so many stories. Oh, she's better. Oh, she got better. But in this book, she would feel better. Then she would get, I mean, she would get a little better. Then she would get, it's almost like one step forward, two steps back, one step forward, two steps back. And you say in here, I want to get back to the caregiver role, and I'll get back to the other
Mhm.
part. But due to the severity of her illness, she was seen at Memorial Sloan Kettering, which is in Manhattan,
Mhm.
and we live on Long Island, so it's a hike to get in there, and it's a little crazy getting into Manhattan, no matter what you're doing and when you do it. It's always
Mhm.
yeah, we're going from one island to another for
Yeah,
those.
it's always a daunting task for sure.
So you actually want us so far as to file for Family Medical Leave Act
Mhm.
so you could take extra time. Was there any, I don't know if you're able to say, was it easy to do that? Was there issues with that? I mean, the fact that it was there is fantastic, but, um,
Yeah, the you know, Family Medical Leave Act, or the FMLA,
mhm,
as many people know it. It's a wonderful tool because it protects your job.
mhm,
So it doesn't necessarily put money in your pocket at all.
yeah,
What it does is you can't get fired for taking time off when you're when you're caregiving for a loved one. It
s-
protects your job. So for
okay,
me, um, that was a good thing. But the downside was I worked for a very corporate company that, people would literally go out of the building on a stretcher at least once a week due to stress related
wow,
issues. So they really didn't um, exude human compassion.
yeah,
So it made it
mm,
a very, very, very difficult challenge balancing such a high demand job that did not show much compassion. I mean, my immediate coworkers were fantastic and are still
yeah,
dear friends of mine today. But, the big beast made
right.
it difficult. And, and then after my mom passed away, I said life is too short, and then that was it.
Look, I know exactly what you mean because I worked in corporate America for decades, and it was always like, yeah, take what you need, take time, do this, do that. Not, but in the back of certain heads' minds, it was always like that person's taking a lot of time off. It was like that. I mean, not for, there were some bosses that were fantastic for me, but there were others, and then ultimately the bean counters, I'll call them.
Mm.
They're gonna look and they're gonna at some point they're going to lop off people who are they consider to be underperforming. I don't care what the circumstances are. It's just the way it is.
It is, and
Um,
I'll actually share with you the exact moment where it was the turning point for me, when the vice president of my division came to me and he said, Amy, I need you to take a new position. And it's a higher up position,
mhm,
but it's going to be a lateral move, meaning no raise. And
yeah.
then he followed it up by saying, I think we were very supportive with you when your mother was sick, and we expect you to return the favor now.
See there? Yeah.
So, and
Mm.
that's that Monday I put in my resignation.
Good. Good for you. Good for you. So, um, yeah, it's like almost like a stigma to helping people. There's a, it's like, um, it's kind of sad how it is in the world of, within the companies.
Hmm.
It's, anyway, we'll chalk some of it off to human nature, some of it off to greed, some of it off to, I mean, we could go crazy trying to analyze
Hmm.
it, but it is the way it is. And it was part of the journey. And good to know
Correct.
that the FMLA is there. I didn't even think of it, be honest with you, until I saw it in the book. Oh, yeah. And it's, thank God it is there. I hope
It
it's,
really does give a peace of mind at a time when you don't have much peace of mind.
so your mom was going for transfusions, and
Hmm.
sometimes she would feel better, and then the
Hmm.
transfusions, increased at some point. And there's another poignant part of the book I wanted to point out. Um, you said, as I walked behind her, pushing the wheelchair with your mom, and my eyes welled up when I looked at mom sitting in the chair. How was it possible my beautiful and young mama was sitting here right in front of my eyes, so sick and helpless, depending entirely on other people's kindness and compassion to do the simplest things in life, such as walk? Um, and then I went on to say, I wanted to be the one walking right by her side. And that is so beautiful. That is, I mean, that the thread of this book, as much as there's so much suffering on so many people's parts, the thread is love in this book. The thread is love. That's what I
Hmm.
see, because it was your love that bonded you to her through that entire journey, and her back to you and your family and the peripheral people in your life. And that's why this is such a beautiful book. And for, it's just, life is so strange that way, how we sickness can bring us closer sometimes.
Hmm.
I mean, it's not the way we ever want it, but it does happen. And I think, go ahead, I'll let you talk about
Yeah,
that.
I mean, thank you for saying that, and thank you for capturing that while reading that, because that was the positive,
Yeah,
aside from wanting it to be a sense of support for other caregivers, is that I wanted to share the story of the privilege that I had received when my mom chose me to be her caregiver. Just because I was her daughter didn't mean that she had to choose me to be
yeah.
her caregiver, and the fact that she trusted me with her life. Um, I thanked God every day for the time that I was able to spend with her, even though it was hard. All of our family was upstate.
Yeah.
I was so grateful for every day that I had with her, and I did my best to cherish every day, because I knew that when she was gone, I would be so grateful that I had that time, and I was really aware of that.
Your self-awareness is like off the charts. I really appreciate, I mean, that is why this book, and I don't, I know I'm making it sound like I'm hawking the book. I, eh, to me, I know we both feel this way,
Mhm.
that again, the thread in this book, love and care for each other. That's why I have this book in my hand, and that's why we're talking about it. If somebody wants to buy 1,000 copies, that's fine also.
Yes.
And that's on Amazon. But I know that's not our purpose here. Our purpose is this
Correct.
message. This message is so important. So, getting back to your mother's battle, you were able to tell, and I'll read another excerpt here. A poignant change in a person's overall health when they are very sick, from my experience, can be recognized when you see a shift in their normal threshold for pain and exhaustion. She had a different kind of tired. I'm paraphrasing a little bit.
Mhm.
You started to see, and you describe her hands bruised and swollen, um, and crying in pain and all that. Her spirit was hurt between the pain, sleep deprivation, the middle of the night move, and your heart was breaking as you saw her suffering. Um, but your mom was a fighter too, and you say how she was still independent even through all that. With her
Mhm.
self-care, you helped her wash her face, brush her teeth, all that. um, she told me it felt so wonderful, and she was so glad you were there. but she was doing it still. She was looking to get into those normal routines to care for
Mhm.
herself, showing her will and her spirit. Um, what uh, what is I keep saying the elephant in the room. It's the cancer. That's what I keep talking about. It's
Mhm.
this insidious, horrible disease that takes down so many friends and family members. It's like they're, you know, here as we're talking and we're going love, care, and all that. It's there going, oh yeah, I got you,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna get you again. And it's just such a mind blowing situation. And I will say, I'm very frustrated in the fact that we need to spend upwards of $1 trillion on military and trillions of dollars on other stuff, and we are not getting rid of this. I mean,
Oh.
I know it's a whole other topic of discussion and probably
Oh yeah,
another
we
book.
could have a whole additional show for that.
And you have an army of people out there, the MSK people, for example,
Mhm.
they're fighting every single day. And you talked about the patients you saw, the people suffering as you walked through the wards. It wasn't just your mom, obviously. I mean, she was, of course, we you were there for, but you walk through this battlefield with these people that were ravaged by this disease and all fighting with all these people running around. And I don't like it when people say, "Oh, it's an industry and they're all there because people are making money." I don't like saying that because these are people that give their lives to care for people. I mean,
Mhm.
maybe there is some of that involved. There's some of that in everything. Like everything
Mhm.
is sold, everything's bought and sold, bought and sold. But I don't want to demean these people ever. The people that are on the floor with your mom.
Right. The nurses are the real angels. I always
Yeah.
say that. And, those people that are on the floors every day, any floor of any hospital,
Yep.
you know, they're there for the right reasons. Whether what puts them there that's a different story, but the people who are on the front line, so to speak, are the real angels.
Good. We'll floor the cynicism, which I have a great deal about those who may be the oligarchs or
Powers
the
that be.
powers that be. So, getting back to being with your mom, I found another passage here. In spite of the cards dealt during mom's time and on the 12th floor, where she was at the time, beautiful memories were made and moments were had, which can only come from times where one is turning lemons into lemonade. As a caregiver and a daughter, I spent days and nights sitting by my mom's side, talking with her, watching shows, and napping next to one another to pass the time. That is so, it's so beautiful that a grown daughter is next to her mom. Like you were with her when you described her, the way she used to brush her hair when you were a little girl. And there you were with her next to her at her side. And it's so beautiful.
That
Um,
was truly I guess like a full circle moment, for the lack of a better word,
yeah,
when I was brushing her hair when she could not brush her hair. And I think that's part of how Hello Sunshine became the title as well, because it was in that moment in ICU, the first time I was brushing her hair, that I went back to that memory of her
mm,
brushing my hair when I was a little girl and singing Hello Sunshine. So you know, it all became full circle in that moment.
um, I wanted to talk about it. I have so many pages dog-eared and filled. I must read the entire book to everybody, and I will do that if you'd like me to. Let me
Absolutely.
move ahead to. I have lots of dog ears, lots of highlights with yellow highlighter, and I have some folded pages. So I'll go to the folded pages because those are the ones
Okay.
that. Um, and here's where I'll describe how you were. It was almost like you were carrying a cross, and like Jesus fell. Sometimes
Mhm.
you were starting to feel the pressure, and you said, emotionally, as a daughter and a caregiver, I didn't know how much more I could handle. It felt like everything that could go wrong did go wrong. So there you were, like you were actually breaking down emotionally. It was both mental and physical for you. I'm thinking that you keep looking at her going, look what she's going through. I have no right to complain. This is nothing because
Mhm.
I don't have this rare form of cancer where you have to have transfusions and all this other type of stuff
Mhm.
going on with her constantly. But in reality, you were getting hammered
Mhm.
and you did stay. What made you stay, would you say? What made you hold up? What was it inside of you?
Well, it was just love.
Love.
It was just love. I just loved my mom. I felt like I was blessed with the best mom. Not everybody can say that about their relationships with their parents. And I can honestly say that my mom was my best friend. And and for better or worse, I wrote about it in the book, in our relationship, we had many battles. We were both two very strong, independent women.
Yeah.
But, she was proud of me for the woman that I was, and I respected her. And at the end of the day, you know, there was really nothing that could tear us apart.
Now I'm going to go ahead past. People can read the details in the book,
Mhm,
and you go through the entire journey of talking about blood platelets, and it's not too scientific. It's just enough to let people know what's going on, how she was inoperable because of the condition, and there were so many different things failing that it's mind-boggling to know when you go through it all. And I wanted to get to this part where you said, because it was kind of getting to the end of the line. It was
mhm.
getting to the end of the line because you keep treating something and treating somebody, and then you come to the realization and with the doctor's advice that this could be it. We may not be able to continue, or we would have to make a decision. You said, with my heart in my hands, I made the decision. My mom would have wanted to end treatment. So what was that like being presented with that? And you said I'm sorry, I'm going to continue a little bit. I never could have imagined in my worst nightmare I would be faced with this, thinking you're growing up watching this strong woman, and then it all reverses, and then you see her in this condition. You need to make a decision on her care, which is such a mind-boggling decision to have to make.
Well, over time, I've learned that through faith and through healing, and grief therapy, that, you know, it really wasn't my decision to make, even though it was presented to me. And,
Yeah.
on paper, I was her healthcare proxy. Um, but, she had already made the decision. Her
Hmm.
body had decided
Yeah.
that it was tired. And, the doctors were just helping me along with, the natural
Yeah.
process of what needed to happen at that time. Do I still lose sleep over it? Sometimes I do still. Not that I made the wrong decision, because the decision was in God's hands, really.
Right.
But, having to be that person to ultimately, on paper, make the decision, it was the hardest. The hardest thing in my life isn't even an accurate description of how I felt. It was the Friday before she passed away, and my son was turning 16 the next day. And I
Hmm.
had been at the hospital every day. And the nurses and the doctors talked to me, and they said, "You have to stay home tomorrow and spend your son's birthday with him. Like, you have to do this. This is what your mom would want you to do. You need to take this day. There's nothing you could do." And, at that point, my mom had a 24-hour, um, caregiver from the hospital in the room with her. She was never alone. So I trusted them, and they said, "Let's see how she does through the weekend. If there is no sign of improvement or anything gets worse, we'll make that decision on Monday."
Hmm.
And 5 o'clock Sunday morning, they called me, and basically said, "This is for my mom's own good, that we couldn't wait any longer." So I hopped in the car and drove into the city, and you know, it really was just, I had to cry it out.
Yeah.
And, I protested silently as I sat there throughout the day. And
Yeah.
then I just signed the papers at the end of the night. But, um, I know it was the right thing, and I know it's what my mom would have wanted. And that was the thing again. I had to learn how to separate my selfish needs as a daughter
Yeah.
and really uphold what my mom wanted, her wishes, not mine.
Yeah.
And, I know there's a lot of people out there who've had to be in that situation to make those decisions, maybe even worse situations.
Right.
But when it's somebody you love, it all feels the same.
You see these things on TV a lot, like in movies or something. We're gonna, do this or that, and people gather around the bed, and you experience this. And of course, yes, other people do. I mean, art imitates life, right? So they're taking what happens, but unfortunately, you got to experience it firsthand. And I want to
Mm,
read this description that is very, very powerful. You said, etched in my memory for as long as I live is the moment when everything was disconnected from mom and the room became silent. And you went on to describe all the disconnections and everything. Um, and then she passed. And you said here, God was guiding. The chaplain said God was guiding me, and that he had mom in the palm of his hands, which is beautiful. Chaplain Carlos at
mm.
Memorial Sloan Kettering. Another group of people that are amazing, the people that work those hospitals. So phew, I really appreciate you reliving some of this. I'm like, I feel a little guilty dragging you through
Uh,
all this.
no,
Um,
I know. I always say it's such a bittersweet part of my life now because,
yeah,
I really do hope that it helps other caregivers, and it is still therapeutic for myself. The
right.
whole purpose of this book was to help others and to have conversations. And the fact that I have a platform such as yours to have conversations like this now, it's, I know my mom's smiling down.
Good. And now let's get to obviously you were grieving and you continue. You lost such huge part, and so I don't want to downplay that, but I want to upplay some of the other parts for people that are going through this. So I
Mhm.
will say that you say being a caregiver to my mom. This was after the fact, toward the end of the book. Being a caregiver to my mom is one of the greatest gifts I have ever received. It was heartbreaking and challenging, but the precious gift of time and love spent together will carry me forever. And here we are talking about it, and other people are hearing about it. And I want you to also talk about your journey with raising money, like Cancer for Survival.
For Cycle for Survival.
Oh, sorry, Cycle for Survival, and now leading Debbie's Warriors for your fifth. I'll let you talk about that rather than me look to decipher it.
Well, while my mom was receiving treatment, one of my many trips into the city, sometimes I would take the train to give myself a break from driving, um, just depending on the day and how I was feeling. And this one day, instead of walking from Penn Station, because I would literally walk from Penn Station all the way up to 61st
Hmm.
to the hospital, sometimes just to have
Yeah, those city blocks are
that
long too, folks.
time to breathe and take in the air before I would spend so many hours in the hospital.
Yeah,
And I pulled up in a cab. That's one day I didn't walk, and I took a cab, and we pulled up, and there was this big sign that said Cycle for Survival, and it had a person on a bike, and it was definitely a lightning bolt moment for me. And I said, I'm going to do this right then and there, because I had already, done spinning classes, and it was an answer to prayers. It was an outlet. It was something I could physically do to help.
yeah,
Being a caregiver and being a human being watching somebody go through cancer is the most helpless feeling in so many ways. And Cycle for Survival was something that I could do.
Hmm.
I could take action. It was a way I could take action, not to really save anybody's, potentially with the funds raised for the life-saving equipment and all of the research that's done because of it, but it lifted spirits like nothing I have ever experienced before. The entire community that comes together, and the founder of the organization, she has since passed, but she was a patient at Memorial Sloan Kettering, and she was a spinning instructor, and that's how it all started.
Hmm.
So I rode my first ride a month before my mom passed away. So she knew of Debbie's Warriors and she got to experience the joy. She was so excited for the team, and she was telling all the nurses, my daughter is doing Cycle for Survival. And
Oh,
she was so excited. So then after she passed, I said, I'm going to keep it on in her memory. And that became part of my, you know, grief healing.
yeah, yeah.
Cycle for Survival was huge outlet for me in my grief. And I led Debbie's Warriors for 8 years and raised thousands of dollars that 100% went directly to Memorial Sloan Kettering. And I just retired a couple of years ago, and now I wanted to put more time locally
Hmm.
in. So I partnered with a friend of mine who is a founder of Stepping Stone Support. She's a cancer survivor herself, and she has this amazing organization out here in Medford on Long Island where she supports um, cancer survivors and also families while they're going through cancer. She has a program called Survivors Helper, and her organization basically adopts families across Long Island and provides them with holiday gifts for the entire families and their caregivers.
That's incredible. Uh, and again, whenever I get cynical and go, look at, you look at news, and we're going to get to your website in a second. You look at news and you go, oh my God, people are so screwed up. This world is so screwed up. Then you hear these stories, and it's like, oh, okay, there is hope for the human race. Thank you very much. And they are out there, people like Amy and everybody she's been talking about. Um, so thank you for mentioning it, and I'll put those links in with the this podcast.
Thank
And
you.
I'm going to shift real quick over to the humanintereststory.com because I think it's a good segue from the
Absolutely.
charity into the fact that Amy also uh, writes stories and collects stories, I'll say, that I'll let you describe. But her website is thehumanintereststory.com, where there are articles about uh, hope and people doing nice things for each other. So I'll let you talk a little bit about that.
So the humanintereststory.com is a platform that I created during COVID, like many other people looking for something to do while they were home, trying to work, be creative. And I said to myself, now if there's a time like any, it would be now to start this platform. I woke up one morning, it was 5:30 in the morning. I said, thehumanintereststory.com. And I went online, and the website was actually available. It was incredible. Within an hour, I had locked in the website and secured that. And I reached out to Margaret Altizer, who worked with me on Hello Sunshine. She is my mentor for many years, and she was my journalism professor at Suffolk County Community College. And she has taught me so much and supported me for years with my writing work. So I reached out to her and I asked her, I said, would you be interested in signing on to be my editor for the Human Interest Story? And she said, absolutely. And she did. And, that was it. I just got to it. And now just celebrated 5 years and getting ready to publish my 68th article.
Wow. That's amazing. So again, taking, I think you said lemons into lemonade. At some point, you used that expression in the book. Um, and again, I commend you for stepping up to the proverbial plate. And I mean, look, I know that there are times in our lives where we get pounded and we just go like, F this. I'm out of here. I'm like shutting down. I'm going to go sit somewhere with a bottle or whatever and escape because, it's just too
And that
much.
does happen. Like, that's the
Mhm.
truth. That's the reality.
Yeah.
It's not all roses, you know?
Right, 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 right.
I've always tried to put my best foot forward, but
And, in
it's not
terms of
easy.
grief, we all shut down sometimes, like I said. And then, but I again commend you for pulling out of it and finding the light. And so we have the miniaturestar.com and that I think you have an event coming up. I thought I just saw June 28th, is it? Can you talk about the event also?
Yeah, the
Getting back.
event coming up on June 28th is a vendor craft fair food truck event to support Stepping Stone support.
Okay.
So that's that event.
That's June 28th, 2025. In case you're listening to this down the line, you missed
Yes,
it. You missed it. But keep looking back at, we'll put the websites in so you keep looking back for events that occur after June 28th, 2025. And also we'll share where people can contribute and all that stuff. The
great.
miniaturestory.com we covered. And then we're going to shift to the children's books just to end on, I mean, again, love and light is most important more than anything, but I
Mhm.
also wanted to talk about your books and let's talk a little about how you got into the children's books. And I saw one of the books, I actually have it on my Amazon Kindle, and I don't know if you do the drawings or not, but I'll let you talk about the books,
Okay.
the children's books.
Well, it all kind of still ties in with, the journey with my mom, because it was after her passing that I said, life is really short. Like, I need
Okay.
to light a fire and get on this
Hmm.
and start publishing my books. And
Okay.
that's what I did. It was 2017. I published Buster's Backpack Adventure.
Hmm.
And then Hello Sunshine came in 2020, and An Apple a Day came in 2024.
Okay.
So Buster's Backpack Adventure was just something I had written years before when my children were small and I was a stay-at-home mom at the time. I wanted them to, just have like a little something from me.
Hmm.
I didn't really think I was going to do anything with it. It was just a creative outlet. But it kind of held the test of time. And when I went back to it, I said, this is what I'm going to do. So I worked with a local artist who
Okay.
was a coworker of mine at the time, Renee Georgie. And she freehand sketched every single illustration in that book.
And,
And
and
it
I
was incredible.
and I love that, by the way. I detected that. I'm like, this is not AI.
Right.
This is somebody writing, like drawing freehand, and I love that. It also almost has like a coloring book type feel to the colors, which I absolutely love.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. And then what about An Apple a Day, which I have up on the screen now?
So An Apple a Day is really um has a piece of my heart. I wrote this book originally when I was 12 years old for a
Oh,
fifth grade school project.
hmm.
And about a year before my mom, got sick, she was already like a little sick at the time because she started doing strange things that my brother and I couldn't understand. And like she was like giving us things like every time we would see her. And we actually made a joke, as horrible as it sounds, we started calling them death treasures because we were like, why is she giving us all these things? Like, this is crazy. She's so young, blah, blah, blah. But it
Yeah.
was like she knew. So with that, she gave me some of my childhood writing. And this book was in there. I had illustrated it in my 12-year-old drawing, written it, bound it, had an author's bio in the back of the book.
That's amazing.
And
Oh,
after she passed away, I went back to it and I said, wow, I'm like, I could do something with this. And long story short, I received two offers from two different publishers, and I ended up going with Pegasus Publishers over in England. They have been amazing, fantastic, everything I could have dreamed of. Their design team did all of the illustrations. I worked with them, remotely via email from New York to England over the period of a year and a half, building the book. And I would receive sketches black and white, and then the color sketches would come in. And it was such an incredible process to do that. Of course, the book originally was not called an apple a day. I went through and did grown-up edits before I started submitting to publishers. But an apple a day it became, and it also became my first publishing contract.
Congratulations. That's pretty amazing.
Thank you.
And you can find that book on Amazon, Amy Nicole. And I just scooted through it for those who could see the video. You could sample the book. It was like the first 6 or 7 pages. I was like scrolling through it for those who couldn't see it. And it looks so beautiful, the colors and everything. And I I I commend you for again finding the light once again. I wanted to mention one more thing because she's like a very diverse writer because it's like memoir, which is like boom, like powerful. Then it's like these like cute children's books, which are just
Yeah.
very light. And then you
I had to
also,
balance it out somehow.
yeah, I like you're just like, phew. You also are a playwright.
Yes,
Tell us
sir.
about the play.
2 Cents. Another incredible journey the past few years. I had an experience in New Orleans about 12 years ago where I met a homeless veteran on the streets who asked me for 2 cents. And of course, it was just one of those moments. It was a moment where I was captivated and I had to know his story. So I took him to get something to eat. He told me his story. I went back to my bed and breakfast. I wrote it as a short story in 2 hours. I said, this is going to be my first full length play. And I had no intention of writing plays again, as I had shared with you, offline before. Um, I had been in theater my whole life and I had written one act plays in high school growing up, but playwriting, as much as I loved it, it was never, I'm going to be a playwright. I just
Yeah.
loved theater, eventually went from being an actor to working on the production side more, really finding a passion for that. And I was in New Orleans for the Tennessee Williams Literary Festival to take master classes as part of that weekend of events that celebrates his birthday every year. And it was fantastic. And that whole moment it was the birth of 2 cents. So over the course of the next 10 years, while I'm working full time in life and everything, I just kept writing away at it. And in May of 2022, I premiered it as a staged reading in LA at the Zephyr Theater. I followed that up with a stage reading premiere in New York at the Revelation Gallery Theater in June 2022.
Mhm.
And then I believe it was December 2023. It's been a whirlwind couple years, is when I presented a staged reading at Bay Street Theater in Sag Harbor, that was a complete full circle moment for me, because having attended the New York State Summer School of the Arts for theater as a teenager, I
Yeah.
had the amazing honor of studying under the mentorship of Lanford Wilson and Michael Warren Powell from Circle Repertory Theater Company,
Amazing. Wow.
which was definitely a defining moment of my life. And then to be back with my play as a staged reading, 2 Cents, at Bay Street Theater, where I had attended the first time on Long Island with Lanford Wilson and my fellow classmates at the time.
Mhm.
I felt them shining down on me. It was such a moment. And then from there, I received an invitation from the woman, Angie Christic, who directed and creatively co-produced my staged readings. She had extended an invitation to me to present 2 Cents as part of the Camden Fringe Festival in London. So I gladly accepted that. And 2 Cents was presented as 2 evenings of staged readings this past August in London at the Libra Theatre Cafe
In London.
in London.
You go big. She goes big, I tell you, ladies and gentlemen. She goes big. Amy goes big. Published author, memoir, children's books, play. Pretty amazing. Give you so much credit. In between, a mom working full time, caregiver. So you got all the cylinders firing. Highs, lows, and in between.
Yes.
So we're going to put all the links out. And I wanted to thank you for joining me on the John Pasadino Show. That's my theme song. I'm working on it. And
Oh,
we have people pushing the barricades. People, please calm down. Get security over there. They're
stay
pushing.
back.
They want autographs. They want autographs.
Yeah,
They want free copies of the children's book. Come
they
on, guys.
should.
Relax, people. Relax. So I wanted to say thank you, and I will follow up with you on the event since we both live relatively close. I'll follow
Mhm.
up with you on the event. It's on June 28th, 2025. And everybody go out to Amazon, look for Amy Nicole. Uh,
Yes, please.
if you're a person that wants to understand the caregiver's journey, I mean, this is firsthand and so powerful. And if you're heading into something like this, I think it'll help. I really do. I think it'll help. Hopefully you're not, but if you are, I would pick it up and look at it. Well, regardless, it's really an uplifting story called Hello Sunshine. That's why we're here, by the way, to talk about that. Um, so thank you again for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me. And thank you for, the opportunity to share all of my work and most importantly, the message for Hello Sunshine to hopefully help other caregivers.
You got it. And this has been, thank you, Amy. And this has been, let me get the announcer in here. Hey, come on in here. Thank you. Thank you. I'm the announcer, John Passadino, by the way. All right. So this has been the John Passadino Show. And you can find me on Substack at John P. Writes, on medium.com at John P. Writes, my website, johnpwrites.com. And this podcast is heard on every conceivable major platform: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, keep going, John, Amazon Music. It's going to be on Audible soon. It's on Substack, and it's on something else. It's on all the big platforms. So please, as you're listening to this and going, wow, that's what an amazing podcast, which I know you are, please spread the word. Tell friends to check out this and other episodes. It really helps us to get the word out because the theme of this podcast is stuff that helps people. So
Yeah,
that's the general broad category. Sometimes I divert into other stuff, but mainly it's looking for stories like this. So if you know people that are into kind of stuff, and hopefully we provide a little entertainment too. We, crack a few jokes here and there. Um,
absolutely. It's a fun time.
but please, yeah, please spread the word. And thank you for joining the John Passadino Show.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
You can find John's writing and other work
At johnpwrites.com.